It's over now.
So now you presented.
Angelo, grazie.
Okay. Oh, I'm using the microphone. Okay. Take your seats and strap in. I'll strap in. I'll take you through a little ride of fantasy here because I've got a few fantasy items to talk about. Anyway, welcome. I'm Angelo de Grazia. For those that don't know me, I'm one of the committee at the Space Association. For those that do know me, bad luck. Moving on. There was a tough 2 months that I had to catch up with, so this presentation doesn't cover all the space news because, as you might know, there's just so much of it. But I'm going to race through it because I want to get to some of my favourite items that most people would know what they're about. They're all about SpaceX, really. But anyway, moving on. First, we'll talk about Australian space. The Australian Space Agency, finally, it was announced that they are going to be headquartered in South Australia. And it's probably the right place because they do have sort of the technology background. And the Prime Minister, made a few comments about, he said that his mega $41 million investment in the Space Agency will result in $12 billion and up to 20,000 jobs by 2030, which would be a fantastic outcome. It will be located at the old Royal Adelaide Hospital site and will be developed there. As you can see from there, there's a number of organisations and government defence contractors that are already there, so there's quite a, in the end it made sense. I would love to have had it in Melbourne, but I think it's probably in the right place. Now, Southern Launch, who are they? Well, they're going to start building infrastructure, launching this infrastructure to deploy nanosatellites with payloads between 50 and 400 kilograms, like the Electron rocket lab. And they're proposing on the Eyre Peninsula in South Australia. So they did an extensive search around Australia and they picked on the Eyre Peninsula. Offers the ability to launch rockets into polar or sun-synchronous and has the obvious advantage of being near major infrastructures. It's a place called Whalers Way, and it's called the Whalers Way Orbital Launch Complex, not far from Port Lincoln, and they're under discussions with a number of launch suppliers to tailor the launch site. And they proposed to start construction this year and finish this year. It's working with the Australian government, the South Australian government and the Australian Space Agency, and there it is. So anyone that kind of knows Adelaide and along Port Lincoln, that's where they're proposing. I was surprised maybe somebody here knows why it's only sun-synchronous and polar orbits. It leaves, doesn't give it as much versatility as being able to launch at lower inclinations. Anyway, there's the Electron.
Because it'll go over Melbourne if they launch down.
Moving on, Rocket Lab. Well, there it is, Electron. There it is in New Zealand, the windiest part you could pick for a launch site. They picked it. They had a launch in the 16th of December, and it was the second commercial flight. Does anyone remember the name of it? No? Not business as usual, something like that. Deployed 13 small satellites, some of which were NASA CubeSat satellites. So it was actually a real commercial venture. And the next mission is expected in February. Numbers from early to late February. They're going to launch another Electron, and this time they're launching for DARPA, which is a US Defence Department research project. And they're proposing to do 12 launches this year, so it'll be good to see. And there you have it. And there's that nice windswept launch pad over there. Now I'll talk about NASA. As you probably know, the 5-week government shutdown affected all non-essential US government agencies. Some key government workers did continue to work on some of the NASA jobs, but a lot of them without pay, incidentally. They realise they probably will get paid eventually, but it's pretty hard when you're trying to make the income cash flow work. The White House formally re-established the US Space Command. This is different from the Space Force. The Space Command is now the 11th military command that they have, and the last one was established, was taken out in 2002, and it is, like I said, it's not part of the Space Force or the Air Force Space Command. That stuff is still going on in the background. There's Pentagon reports that are coming out that still don't acknowledge the disassociation of the space responsibilities from the Air Force. So there's still a few little battles looming, even though Mr. Trump certainly wants a Space Force. Another piece of information, due to congressional opposition, NASA has indefinitely postponed a visit to the US by the head of Roscosmos, Dmitry Rogozin. He was invited by Jim Bridenstine in late 2018 when he was in Russia. Interestingly enough, the FBI, or not the FBI, CIA had classed him as, what was it?
Sanctions because he was part of the US government. So the Russian government when Ukraine was annexed.
Correct. Exactly right. So he was part of that people they hold responsible for the Crimea takeover. And there he is. There's Jim Bridenstine, who's the NASA administrator, and Dmitry Rogozin. US space policy. A second effort will be made this year to pass a commercial space regulatory reform bill. It's really about keeping the space station open to 2030, and I think there's been movement of recent times to make that happen. And I think it'll probably get the nod now that the government's back in working operation. No, Len?
I don't know, I'm just shaking my head in disbelief. That's just crazy to see.
Anyway, that's the issue at the moment, and the other thing is that they're going to again try to relax some of the conditions and legislation surrounding commercial space. So they'll have another go at this. A House is also proposing to give NASA $21.5 billion this year, but the big elephant in the room is the James Webb Space Telescope. They had to increase the budget by another $800 million, and I think they've had enough. And there is real serious talk about potentially cancelling, but they've already spent something like $2.5 billion on it. So I doubt they'll cancel it, but it's a serious issue. The other thing is we've got Mike Griffin, who was also a previous administrator. He's now part of what's now the New Space Development Agency in the Pentagon. Now what will happen is he'll get taken in to the Space Force when that happens. Again, because some of his stuff overlaps some of the Air Force stuff, there's bound to be a little bit of friction between the two. ISS. Again, these two guys, Nelson, Democrat, and Senator Cruz from Republican Texas. By the way, Bill Nelson didn't win his last round of elections, so he's out. But before he leaves, he's working with Ted to extend the space station. The other thing we've had is we had MS-11 Soyuz arrive at the ISS, and it was the first time that people actually flew from the aborted mission MS-10 in October. So the cosmonauts were brought there, and they joined 3 others in the space station. There he's going up. Oops, back. Here we go. The crew of the previously aborted have been given new mission assignments. These 2 guys join this lady, and they will go up at the MS-11 flight. Sorry, MS-12. The hole in the Soyuz. There it is, the Soyuz. They did a bit of a check, and geez, I don't know how they found the hole from the outside. It's pretty good work. In the meanwhile, MS-09 returned back to Earth, but the Russian cosmonaut who actually did the space work came back and said the hole in the Soyuz spacecraft was drilled from the inside. He basically said it, and he said it was up to investigators to determine the actual cause. He'll bring all the evidence. He brought all the evidence back, and a report is expected in March. But he said he dismissed rumours that one of the members of the station's crew created a hole while in orbit. You shouldn't think so badly of our crew. Originally, the finger was pointed at some of the American astronauts, so pretty amazing stuff.
Cold War.
There was a report on, there's an American space show, with respect to Andrew's Australian space show, there's an American space show by David Livingston, and he had a guy on last week that said it's a Russian smoke screen and there are big problems inside the Russian space industry.
Absolutely.
And that there's workforce problems and all sorts of things, and it could have been anyone, but it's from inside the Russians.
Yeah.
I wish Igor was here.
In fact, our friend Dmitry Rogozin got a bit of a washing down from I think he's the president of Russia.
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, and he said, stop with all the grandstanding and do something.
Yeah, they tried to blame the astronauts on the space station, blame the Americans, blame everybody, but all the evidence, all the circumstantial evidence is that it's inside Russia.
The Russians are in a real pickle at the moment, and I suspect Mark and Igor will cover a bit of that at the next meeting. Sorry?
They could have been killed and then died.
I know, dreadful thing. But it appears that it's probably been drilled somewhere on the ground at some point.
Yes.
During manufacture, during fit out, something of that nature.
And then repair.
Anyway, it's the Russian space program. The former glory of that program is now in absolute tatters.
How did it get up into space then, if it had the hole?
Because it was actually plugged up. And it was, and the plug had actually let loose in space, and they started leaking.
Okay.
And that's how they came. All right. The exciting news, of course, is this year we're going to see this happen. We're going to have men fly out of the US on either, or both, in fact, SpaceX Dragon 2 and the Starline CST-100. Boeing. This is the current schedule. There's an uncrewed flight, March 2 OFT1, second quarter, no, that's wrong. Sorry, that's wrong. Second quarter pad aboard, August crewed, and December will be operational missions. I suspect that will be delayed from Boeing. There it is. This is a video, but I'm not going to play it. I haven't got time. There was a crew reassignment only last week. We had Eric Bow on the left was replaced by Mike Fink. Eric will become assistant to the chief of the Astronauts Office for Commercial Crew, which is a position that Mike currently holds. And the reason why is unspecified medical conditions, so we don't know what they are. But that's the latest on that crew assignment. Now we get to SpaceX. 23rd of February, no earlier than. Was the 7th, we'll have demonstration mission 1, DN1. The second quarter, we're going to have a Crew Dragon in-flight abort test, and in June, they're still talking about, I thought it is a bit later than that, but it will probably slip. They're talking about having the first man flight out of the Cape. So we're only 6 months away, which is pretty exciting stuff. And there are the sort of renders and drawings, and there's the real thing, sitting at the Cape. And that's what it was meant to look like years ago. And there's another more recent picture, and there's the real thing, sitting on a pad. There's the arm up against the Crew Dragon. Just looks fabulous from there. He sets a new standard in fashion, space fashion. Certainly nothing like the Boeing launch system on pad.
Go back one slide. Just have a look at the flame trench on the right hand side. There's like an island sort of thing in the middle of it. That must be for their strong back. It goes down.
That's exactly right. And you can see the support system right there.
It's flooded.
Okay, moving on. Now we go to SpaceX. This was the big news over the last couple of months. On the left-hand side, we have the amazing Saturn V. And on the right-hand side, we have what's called the Starship. And this is now called the Super Heavy. And it used to be called the BFR, which was the Big Falcon rocket. And it was always hard to I'm saying it's Falcon. I'm saying it's Falcon, but it was always interesting because you could never differentiate between the top bit and the bottom bit. Now you can. And this is, of course, is the Falcon 9. So it is a very big monster. Sorry for the graphic. All of a sudden, something new pops up. It's called the Starship Hopper. We'll talk about that in a sec. And there is the Starship, there's the Super Heavy. And that's when they're stacked together. That's going to be something to see, let me tell you. There they are. The most amazing part of all this was it's now stainless steel. So remember all that $5 billion or whatever they bought for composite fibre? Well, guess what? They're not going to use it for this particular rocket. They'll probably use it for the Falcon 9s and the Falcon Heavies. So this is an amazing thing. This is made of stainless steel. And when he spoke about being counterintuitive, some of the details, if you look into it, you'll find why. The heat shield on this thing will be the steel. It's much more adaptable to heat, but he's now using what's called a regenerative heat shield system. Essentially, he's got 2 layers of stainless steel, and he pumps either water or methane fuel at the bottom to dissipate heat. And in fact, the bottom layer actually has holes in it, and it actually spurts out the fuel or the water, creating a little layer between the plasma and the rocket ship itself. Pretty amazing technology. I'm going to be fascinated to see how he does this, but that's what he's working with. Oh, God, geez, there's some things from the past. Oh, amazingly similar. Well, out in a little place in Texas, not far from the border, Boca Chica, there might be a wall somewhere between this launch site and the Texas border, which is right on the property, but we don't know yet. Nothing started, but all of a sudden this thing started to appear, and there was all sorts of speculation. The contract to build this thing was given to a water tank manufacturer. Now, you know, clearly he's trying to save a few dollars, but we thought it was just an elaborate fuel, water tank. Anyway, so he builds this bottom bit, and he builds this nose cone. And there's the bottom bit. He fills in the fins. It's all stainless steel. And he puts these dummy Raptor engines on the bottom. He did this for a reason. I'll show you in a minute. And there you have it. And so over the last month and a bit, he's built this thing. There it is. Now the launch site is back here, I believe, and this is where they built this thing. There's the top of the first stage, because that's empty basically. Sorry, that fits on that. This is a render of what it looks like. Nice, stainless bullet. And this is what the real thing looks like. And that is a real picture. That's not a render. That was a photo opportunity. By the way, in the meanwhile, he's been raising money for SpaceX, okay? I think he raised another $600 million.
Can I read something that TikTok or something?
Yeah, I'll get to that. So there you have the render and the real report. And there it is, about a week and a half back, a big wind came along and basically knocked the top off and flew it onto the ground. They reckon, oh, we'll recover from this, we'll just sort of bend it a little bit. And now this thing here is 9 metres wide, right? It's not a small piece of metal. I suspect what will happen is they'll rebuild it. But it doesn't carry anything inside. All the operative components are there. I've now started to believe that this thing is really going to fly. I find it hard to believe, but it probably will fly. There's the bent piece of metal. And there it is. This is a recent shot, and as you can see, they're putting it all back together again, but they're working underneath. See, this is a hoist, and they've put the dome to the fuel tank up the top, and inside, God knows what they're putting in there, but this is meant to fly.
You're right, it's a water tank. You're absolutely right.
I'm still not 100% convinced they'll fly this thing, but the Raptor engines are ready to go. They've been manufactured at their manufacturing plant. I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, are they building these still in Hawthorne?
Yeah.
And
And
they'll
they're
be,
modified, you know that they're modified.
they're modified. They're actually a compromise between a vacuum engine, which has a really big bell, and a atmospheric one, which has a smaller throat. So again, more amazing technology from SpaceX. They've also been upgraded quite significantly from the old Raptor engines. I think they produce something like 2,000 kilonewton of force, but the best engines still to date are the RD-180s, which the Atlas still fly. I think they produce about 2.3 kilonewtons or something of that order. But these are still pretty amazing engines. And this is a rendition of what it might look when it actually launches. And they will repeat the grasshopper effort that they did before they got the Falcon 9s to land. Amazing technology. He's doing it on a shoestring. To build it out in a paddock with a water tank manufacturer is just mind-boggling. The aerospace companies will be just churning in there. Again, this guy's laid down in gauntlet. I don't know if I get to Europe, but Europe is in all sorts of panic about what SpaceX has done to its business. The Europeans are now strategizing as how do we compete with these guys. Just recently they lowered their costs to compete with SpaceX. The Russians have been blown out of the water by SpaceX. So we have this constant debate, Len and myself, but I still believe that he has changed the industry and he's really making a difference.
You're a believer.
I'm a believer.
But the biggest launches of the last couple of years was China.
Correct. And who was the second biggest launcher?
India.
No, SpaceX, 21 launches. Just one thing that we should be aware of though, this guy, SpaceX, is really sticking his neck out. Whether he's got the funds to develop this thing, there's talk of something like $10 billion to develop this thing. It doesn't come easy, and I don't even think Elon Musk it would come easy. So there's that risk that things can go wrong, even at this point.
Plus they've just announced a 10% headcount reduction.
Correct. Correct. I think I might have mentioned it here. I might not have, but they have. They've taken 10%, and a lot of those 10%. If you read
Headcount.
headcounts. If you read the tea leaves, I suspect it's the guys that were working with the carbon fibre material. A lot of those people would have no real work now because it's all one status.
The last time a stainless steel was used in a rocket was Mercury Atlas.
Correct. But this is a different animal. This is thicker material, all sorts of stuff.
Did that over 50 years
I'm not
ago.
going to play this video.
New technology.
I think I might have played it. Lunar exploration. Well, there's the big shaker and mover over the last couple of months. It's all starting to happen. NASA announced the selection of 9 companies eligible for future contracts to transport payloads to the moon. And of course, you've got some of the real heavyweights there, Lockheed Martin. Of course, you've got Marsden, Moon Express, but there's a couple of other, startups that are really getting involved. And the idea here is to basically share some of the money over 10 years. Each company will receive only small amounts of funding to develop payload users guide, and then will be eligible to compete for task orders under the CLPS to fly those payloads. So that's a real interesting development. There's a Lockheed Martin proposal. Again, the idea is that you scale from the small landers up to finally the man-rated landers, and it's an evolutionary process up the ladder.
You should order them from China.
Sorry?
You should order those from China.
Yeah, we should. I'm sure that Andrew will give us a good update as to where the Chinese are. But there's no doubt about it, the Chinese have got a huge ambition on the moon. And Lunar Gateway, still progressing. Of course, lunar tugs. And there was a kind of a Lockheed Martin concept for a lunar lander. Don't know the full weight of this thing, but it just looks big and expensive. Coming from Lockheed Martin. It would be.
That's steel.
Space launch systems, things have been moving. As you know, at the early next year, it was meant to be this year, early next year we'll see the first mission, Exploration Mission 1, and it will fly to the moon. And they're now getting themselves organised. There it is, the Orion capsule. That's inside. It's quite a large space actually. You know, it is a lot bigger than the Apollo. It's about a 5 metre diameter.
These guys giants.
No, he's not that big. What they did do is they got the hydrogen tank for the Space Launch System, took it out of New Orleans, the chute, and they put it up at Marshall Space Flight Centre, and you're going to shake the living daylights out of it and make sure it can survive the loads. And there it is. They also did some more launch abort tests. That's the motors there. They're smart abort systems. They're not, you know, your granddad's abort systems from the Apollo era. Oops, go back. And there they are testing it. That was the actual test, and it's meant to basically pull the Orion off an exploding or something else unforeseen happening to the SLS. And it does hoops in the air and does all sorts of things and vectors its way around. And, they did do a test in 2010. It's worth having a look at that. You'll see some of the film of that particular program sequence of events. And of course, test stand B2, that should say, at Centre Space Centre is just about getting ready to put something in there and fire it. And what it will be the core, the SLS, with its oxygen hydrogen tanks put together, and the 4 RS-25 space shuttle engines on the bottom. Real space shuttle engines, by the way, and they will just fall into the ocean. Anyway, there's that thing going back maybe 50 years ago. It was also used to test the Saturn V. So there's a bit of a back in history shock. Of course, the service module has come from Europe, from Bremen in Germany, and this is it recently. And this is the Exploration Mission 1 profile. It's a great little shot, but it'll tell you, you know, it'll get itself into a weird kind of orbit, and then it'll fire its rockets and come back. Be great. Planetary. I'll run very quickly through this. Hubble. I don't know if you know, the wide field camera had broken down recently. It's now been repaired. Engineers there reckon this thing could go into the well into the 20s. That's why the wide field is so important. Pictures like that go right back to the sun.
More than 90% of those objects are galaxies, not stars. There are very few stars in that.
Correct. And they go back to just about not far from the Big Bang itself. I find it absolutely mind-boggling when I see that picture. We had Chandra, gyros. They were having similar problems with Hubble. That's now fixed. We encountered the Sun with the Parker Solar Probe, and of course...
Just go back to the Parker one.
Yep.
Apparently in December it's going to set a new record. A new speed record, December of this year.
Yeah. I believe so.
It's going to be doing something like over 200 kilometres per second.
It is the fastest. I heard it will go up to 800 kilometres an hour, or some ridiculous number.
No, that's not a ridiculous number, that's an aeroplane.
Sorry, 800,000 kilometres an hour.
Yeah, possibly.
And so this is it's going to break a few records yet.
It's far faster than any of the voyages on your horizon. It has a lot less total energy because it's closer to the sun.
Amazing. Great mission. Of course, we know InSight landed on Mars. Fantastic. In good health, doing well. This is a video, but I won't play that again. And there's one of the first released pictures looking out on the planes. And Andrew will talk a bit more. Selfie, one of the first selfies they always do. And this is a sort of a render showing the seismometer and the, what do they call it, the heat, Andrew? Heat flow probe. That's what it kind of looks like. And I don't think that's quite as close as that. And there it is. They actually dropped the seismometer on here. And
Must be raining. Dusty.
I'd like to play this, but we're probably going to run out of time. Sounds of Mars. It's actually quite intriguing because there's actually the wind blowing past the solar panels, and it's at a very low frequency, so they had to double the octaves. But you can actually hear the vibration on Mars with the wind, and it's quite fascinating thing to watch or to
You
hear.
were space nerd?
Hey?
You were space nerd?
Pretty much. Pretty much. What's this one? Just confirmation of the old analysis, and this is probably old news now, but old Indian data says the moon's full of ice. Brilliant. Go and find it. I think that's what the Chinese are looking for. Unfortunately, no signals yet. They've got another plan to try to. I think they're up to Plan D at the moment.
They're sending a new software load up to it, but they're not optimistic. This is opportunity. Opportunity's probably
Opportunity on opportunity. So we hope to hear it, but I got the funny feeling it's a dead duck. Poppy phone Kepler, this died. Soviet Dawn mission, ran out of fuel, did great science. Andrew sort of spoke about a few of these. Of course, we've got OSIRIS-REx around the asteroid Bennu. It detected water on the asteroid, and it will look at collecting samples next year and return to Earth in 2023. And there is just another rock.
But that would be the most significant recovery in history. If it happens.
We've had others.
Yeah.
We've had others. We've had comet recovery, and don't know about asteroid. Have we had an asteroid recovery, Andrew?
SAA.
Yeah, I didn't get much. And landed in Australia, didn't it?
Yeah.
Something like that. Oops, sorry, go back. This is New Horizons, and this is some models that they did when they had early pictures of it. And there is a picture that is about a week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 weeks old. Andrew hopefully will show us some better ones. But you can see the kind of movement. And that's what it looks like. So it ain't small. You think it is, but it ain't.
Just on that, Dr. Alan Stern said, as you said, there's enough fuel to go to the 2030s. They're going to look for another object.
Yes, they are.
They're not ruling out another encounter.
Correct. They're sourcing another object.
They're also planning an Earth photo as well. Furthest ever taken.
Look forward to that. But
It's a risk. It's a risk in realigning the telescope. They may lose.
yeah. Hopefully we might. They should send it to Planet X. What do you reckon?
Well, they haven't found it.
Yeah, you got the address marker.
Just follow those planets.
Yeah.
A, B,
That's
C.
right.
All right.
Thank you, Dodgers.
The next space telescope. That's if James Webb doesn't suck up any funding. They're talking about something bigger and better, and they're talking about biosignatures from possible habitable planets. And I find that again just amazing to be able to do that. And that telescope could be up in the next 15, 20 years. So I know it's a long time, but time flies. There is Le Voir. And of course we've got the Mars 2020 coming up, and they've picked a crater and we'll cache samples for later sample return. So that's again going to be a great mission. It's got a little helicopter on it, by the way. Got a little drone, so it'll be fun. Voyager 2 finally went past the heliopause. Voyager 1 passed it in 2012. It's now indefinite interstellar space, and they reckon it could operate for another decade, which is
Yeah, one bit of talking about is they're monitoring power loads on both, and that they said that around about 2020 they're going to have to start cycling the instruments to share the power.
Load shed, yeah.
Yeah, load sharing or load shedding. But they can talk to the Victorians about that. And it'll probably run to about 2030 or something.
That's a lousy picture, but essentially it's where the atmosphere of the sun kind of ends and the interstellar pressure where they're equal at the boundary.
Voyager 2 is currently transmitting at 160 bits per second. Like not kilobits, bits.
So good old days. I remember when the internet first started, we had modems that
160
weren't as good as
bits.
that. God knows where I am here. The recent news is, the Air Force gave money to 3 companies, Blue Origin, Northrop Grumman and United, to build the next generation of Air Force lifters. But
Blue
one
Origins may have a problem. It's called divorce.
I'll come to that.
His
But
fortune-
what's half of 140 billion?
Yeah.
70.
Yeah, but his fortune just halved.
Irrespective, 70 billion is a lot of money. The latest information is the Air Force says it needs more time before it's willing to launch payloads on the previously flown Falcon 9 rockets. The Falcon 9 recently launched the 3rd time. Okay, they've had a 3-time launcher, but it's amazing to me the Air Force is even contemplating it. So they are seriously thinking about it. There's the Blue Origin New Glenn, and there is the Orbital ATK. It's now Grumman. I forgot the extension. And of course the ULA Vulcan. So they're the 3 launches, there they are. And then we had the NROL 71 launch, and I love seeing some of these pictures and the burnt boosters. The launch is crazy. They ignite the hydrogen, and you think the whole thing's going to blow up, and it doesn't. There it is. And it was launched from Vandenberg. European Space Agency. The only really, they've selected launch site for EXO 2020, Mars. What's this? Arianespace is currently a dozen launches in 2019, so they're only talking 12. This year, or last year, SpaceX had 21. China had 35 or 36, I think, something like that. European Space Agency officials warned of a challenging year. Arianespace is cutting its price. 3 European companies have won a study for lunar lander missions. Remember, the Lunar Village concept came from ESA to begin with, so they're very keen to get onto it. And will be led by Arianespace Group along with PTS scientists. They're an ex-lunar X-Prize competitor. And the study will examine the feasibility of lunar lander mission launching in 2025 to mine lunar regolith to extract resources like oxygen. They're serious about trying to get fuel off the moon. And there's the old X-Prize PT scientists. That's pretty much where I got to with my... In fact, this is where I ended, so I'm only 2 minutes later than that. I didn't update where we are with Russia, but as I said before, it's in turmoil. Next month we'll continue on. Thank you.
Right, now we're Andrew Rennie for his planetary and space science update. Let's look over our presentation and do it right.
Good, thanks very much, folks. Now, I had intended to not only do an update on what's happened in the 2 months since our last meeting, but also give you a preview of what's happening in 2019 and going to 2020. But, like Angelo, got too much, so we'll do the future one perhaps next month. Now, I'm going to start with a few little movies, because movies usually fall off the end of my little show. So I've got about 8-9 minutes of video. So, Michael, you going to do the honors for me, please? Mm-hmm. Good. It's down under presentation. Good one. And videos. And that folder. And we show them 1, 2, 3 in that order.
Pronouncing the name.
Alright. Finally. Now, for those of you who can't speak Chinese, wait. Oh, okay. Doesn't know how to do videos.
That's new.
just MP4 movies.
Drop it onto a VLC player.
Okay, can I open the VLC?
Have we got a VLC player?
Yeah, they're one there next to
Yeah.
Chrome.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is, VLC.
This image was sent by the probe Chang'e 4.
The Chang'e probe.
The probe called Chang'e 4
China's Chang'e 4 probe has entered in the planned orbit.
It's Chang'e 4. Chang'e.
So it's not Chang'e.
Is it
Chang'e.
This image was sent by the probe Chang'e 4.
Anyway, let's go on with movie number 2, which is the landing on the moon, on the lunar far side.
It is black and white.
And this is
It's because it's
running
company.
at 10 frames per second. So to speed it up. So it's been shown at 24, 25 frames a second, but it was filmed at 10 frames a second. So this is faster. There is a slower version that's been people have put into the real speed, but it takes you long to show. Anyway, the thing is, okay, it's in orbit, going horizontally. They fire the engines, as you can see. There's a landing leg at the top over there, and this is part of the structure of the spacecraft. And at the moment, we're thrusting to kill out our horizontal velocity. In a moment, having reached not quite stationary, but nearly stationary horizontally, here we go. We now tip over and begin thrusting to slow our vertical fall. So we're going to fall, not quite vertically, but if you watch where these craters are moving, we're almost coming down vertically. Now the reason I did that rather than the traditional Apollo type landing or the one they did with Chang'e 3 is to get over the mountains surrounding the South Pole Aitken Basin. Very nice control.
I wonder where I'll park.
Now watch for the dust being kicked up as we get near the touchdown. We're hovering there at about 100 metres altitude, searches out a landing site, and then goes for it. Now the reason I had to search out the landing site to make sure there aren't any big craters. Here we go, touchdown, and so on. Notice the pad on the left there. Most of the pictures you see are actually rotated around, as I'll show you one shortly. The motor keeps on outgassing for a while. The motor switches off on before touchdown. It drops down from about 3 metres in 1/6 gravity, a fairly gentle touchdown, but then the motor continues to outgas for a while, which accounted for the dust continuing to spread out. Notice that the lunar soil, okay, that's it. Thank you. Okay, we come to the next video, and we've got the vehicle moving out onto the lunar surface. This is U2, Y-U-T-U, it's U2, and number 2. They had a naming competition to name the second rover, and they decided, after all the names that were submitted, they'd go with U2. Note the way the wheels operate and turn it.
Have they sped this up as well? Have they sped this up as well? Time lapse?
Stand still.
And it turns around and takes a photograph of the thing. They're actually photographing each other was shown live on China television, and you can find that on the internet. Okay. Now, Hayabusa. This shows. You're supposed to see the spacecraft moving.
Where's the spacecraft? The red one.
Anyway, it does on a version another version I had. What happened was Ryugu went behind the sun as seen from the Earth. As a result, they couldn't communicate with Hayabusa 2 for several weeks. And so, rather than hold it at 20 kilometers, see the minus 20 there, where the red dot is? Red dot is Hayabusa, the black dot is Ryugu. And they simply said, okay, we can't hold it there while we go behind the moon because we just got no control over it. So what they did is they said, okay, we'll send it out on a trajectory out to about 110 kilometers and it will come and drift back in. And by the time it gets back in, it's come out the other side of the sun. And they get control of it again. One of the advantages of going behind the sun is they've got a better handle on the exact orbit of Ryugu. As a result of that, they are now more able to confidently control Hayabusa in station keeping with Ryugu because now they've got a better idea of the orbit. So the navigation is made easier by this event. Okay, next movie. And here is Bennu. Now, Angela showed you a stool of that, and here it is. Notice the big rock sitting on the surface. Ryugu has two big rocks sitting on its surface. So the Japanese chose the asteroid with two big rocks. Good. And our last one. As Angelo said, the landing site for Mars rover 2020
was produced from NASA images taken from orbit.
has been chosen.
The blue
We're
circle
going to go on a little fly around.
over will likely land. The arcing hills in the center, about 1,600 feet high, are the rim of the crater.
The central goal of Mars 2020 is to learn whether life ever existed on Mars. It's too cold and dry for life to exist on the Martian surface today. But after Jezero Crater formed billions of years ago, water filled it to form a deep lake, about the same size as Lake Tahoe. Eventually, as Mars climate changed, Lake Jezero dried up and surface water disappeared from the planet. An ancient lake is a fantastic place to pursue our goal of looking for possible Martian life. On Earth, lakes are filled with living creatures. Evidence of that life is often preserved in the mud and sand deposited on the bottom of the lake. So, we use the rover's instruments to explore the rocks of the ancient lake bed. Here we can see evidence of the former lake. The canyon cutting through the crater rim was carved by a river. As the water entered the lake, it slowed and dropped the sand and mud it was carrying to form the fan-shaped delta. The white line is a path the rover might follow in its first 2 years, called the prime mission. During this period, we'll use the rover science instruments to analyze the lake sediments. After we explore the delta, we hope to investigate the shoreline of the former lake. To get there, we have to traverse around a sea of modern sand dunes. From this perspective, you can see former shorelines curving around a headland. We can picture waves in Lake Jezero beating on a sandy beach. And finally, we will press on to the crater rim. Jezero Crater formed when a large object collided with Mars, excavating rocks from deep in the Martian crust, exposing them in the rim for us to study. These rocks would have been hot shortly after the impact and may have hosted hot springs. Deposits from these springs would be another target in our search for possible ancient life on Mars.
So that sums up why they chose Jezero as the landing site. if you're interested, some of the recent conferences they've had in the United States, the people have explained more about the landing site selection and how they did that. Right, Angela, Michael, sorry, we're on to the slides now. And can you take all those into the slideshow? If you want, you can move our shoot a video folder out of the way.
Yeah.
Control, no control.
Go shoot. Keep going. All I do. Go shoot. Click the last one.
Anyway, I'm going to start with New Horizons. And this photo I'm going to show you was taken from 6,700 kilometres away on January the 1st at 5:26 Universal Time. It has a resolution on the surface of 135 metres, and the pits that you see in it are,
It'll go in order. Well, actually, one of them will go in order.
they're all numbered. One from 0 to 1, 0, 0.
It's not putting it in order.
If you just open that one, it should then go into
Well, I'll show them in random order then, and I'll just talk zigzags through the presentation.
You'll just have some extras.
You want me to just click it again?
Click on it, open it, and you should have a forward button.
Yeah, I know. But the problem is when you open it, it comes up with the wrong slide to start with. So.
just open the first one.
Home.
Yeah, that's a picture of Venus taken by the Akat
Maximise it.
Suki space probe. That's a picture of last week by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter showing the opportunity rover on the surface of Mars after the dust storm. No.
Will not sort in order.
Oh well. Okay.
Should be able to open just the first one and then use the mouse wheel to scroll through them.
Yeah, should be. Sure. Right, let's try that.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll do. Yeah.
On Windows computers, you usually just select the first picture and then press next.
Now you've got the arrow. Okay, here we go.
Here we go. Right.
Is that in order now?
Good one. Right.
All right.
So these pits that you see, especially the big one, by the way, officially, it's the smaller lobe and the larger lobe. But I go with Alan Stern. Ultima and tuba. Okay. So on Ultima, there's a big depression. What's not certain is whether that's an impact crater or whether it's a collapse from the venting of the primordial material from which it was made. Likewise, some of these other indentations that you see there, are they sinkholes or are they impact results? We're waiting until they get a better resolution. By the way, that picture only came out a few days ago, so notable as well, see the white around the neck? It's not a necklace. They're debating what that is. I think it's because material has slumped into that place and it's simply a finer grained material and therefore looks brighter than the other. But the jury is out.
Could be a thermal thing.
Yes, could be. But this is a visible light image, it's not an...
Yeah, that just maybe there might be some thermal characteristics by being.
Yeah.
What's the white T between?
That's what we're talking about.
Sorry, I missed that.
We don't know.
You don't know? I don't know.
We're speculating.
Around the neck.
Yeah, around the neck.
Yeah.
What
That's what I
did
say. The official version so far that's been released publicly is we don't know what it is. I just offered the explanation, possible explanation, that it's finer grained material that is settled around that neck due to gravitational reasons, and being finer than the rest of the regolith, it's brighter.
Could be ice.
Could be. So, you can offer a whole lot of reasons, and I'm not the expert on
It's glue. It's glue.
So anyway, there's Ultima Thule. Right, next picture please. Now, where is New Horizons? Well, you can see the box there showing, and around it you can see a number of other climate guide objects. And many of these are being imaged, albeit as just a pixel. But from that imaging, with just even one pixel, they can work out things like its rotation rate, its brightness, and more particularly, just exactly where it is in relation to New Horizons spacecraft. So you can actually work out quite a bit from even just a pixel. But watching it over a period of time, you can see it does it vary in brightness as it rotates and so on. Whether or not it'll get a closer flyby of any of these is still to be determined. Alan Stern hopes it will, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay, next picture please. Now, the moon. One of the great puzzles of the moon is why is the near side different from the far side? Now, maybe it would help if I use my little
Top one, very top.
pointer.
Very top. That's eerie.
Now, this area here, this obviously is the far side, and this is Sea of Moscow, which is the main sea, I'll call it a sea, on the far side. But this darker area here is the South Pole is South Pole Aitken Basin. The reason that is because from the South Pole to a crater up here called Aitken. Right, next picture please. And here's the South Pole, and there's Aitken there, and you see this huge depression. Now, the X mark is the exact spot where Chang'e 4 landed. It actually landed in there, in that crater there. Okay, next one. So here's this crater. It's recognisable because it's sort of got a heart shape to it, and the lander landed in that crater there. Okay, next one. It was in a lunar orbit, polar orbit, and landed. I think it was going from north to south when it landed. Okay, next one. So here's our little schematic showing the trajectory of the whole thing. Note the Quequayo relay satellite out here, relaying instructions to do the landing and also monitoring the video back to mission control in Beijing. Okay, next one. And here's the relay satellite from the moon to the Earth and vice versa. It's at in an halo orbit around the L2 position, the lunar L2 position. If it was exactly at L2, of course, it would be in a direct line. You wouldn't be able to see the Earth. So it's in a halo orbit around that position. Next one. It carried two Saudi Arabian microsatellites or miniature satellites, and one of them failed. It was detached to go into orbit, and it failed. But the other one worked quite nicely, thank you very much. And this is an example which brings to mind the Apollo 8 moonrise photo. Earthrise, sorry. Yeah, photo. And nice picture here of the Earth and the Moon, taken by that Saudi Arabian satellite. Okay, next one. And I noted already that the descent was pretty much vertical. Go next. And here's where it landed, there, approximately, 200 metre scale there. And these are some of the other craters that are visible in the landed photos. Okay, next. And again, these are from people working out. The background image is a lunar reconnaissance orbiter photo taken in 2010. This is from the Chang'e 4 camera, descent camera, and it's pointing out things that are visible in it, and so you can work out that must have gone. Okay, next one. This is how these photos are usually displayed. Notice in the movie, this was up over there, but you see the dirt that's been displaced. Not much displacement. You'll see that again in a photo or two's time. Next one. Again, trying to work out where it landed. This crater here, which is prominent, this is taken before the rover was deployed, and that's that crater there. And we zoom to there, and we zoom to there, and zoom to there, and zoom to the landing. So that's sort of figuring out where it is. Next one. It took a panorama. Now that actually enlarges up to huge size, but we'll just leave it like that. And so if you can get that, if you haven't already seen that picture, download it in full resolution, and you can zoom in and look at all the details around there. Okay, next one. So it came down off the, this is a hoist. So it was up on the rover deck there, this rode it down to the hoist then lowered it down, and it went down the ramp. And it moved initially out to there, you saw the video of it doing the turn there, and then it sat there for several days because it was then getting on towards noon, lunar noon at the landing site, and it was getting a bit hot. So they decided to play it safe, and rather than risk getting overheated and so on, they simply shut down. And that's why we saw nothing for about 2 weeks, or more than a week after the landing. Nothing more about it. And then it moved on. And then when it got out past here, it came to lunar night. And it's now in the lunar night, 14 days of lunar night. And of course it shut down for that time. It has a radioactive source on board. It's not an RTG, radioisotope thermoelectric generator. It's just simply radioactive material which makes it hot or warm. And it keeps the thing warm. Now the Russians did the same thing with the Lunicon rovers. They kept them warm overnight so that they could keep operating, and those rovers operated for a year or more on the lunar surface. Well, I hope you do the same with this one, and it's hopefully survived the night. We'll find out in a few days' time whether it survived or not. Next picture, please. Now there's a little rover on the surface at that point where it did the little turn, and that's the point at which it took the photographs looking back. And this is when the Chinese leaders were at mission control, and they made great feel-good speeches about how wonderful the Chinese space program was and how great communism is. And they did this in live. They sent the commands to the relay satellite, which sent it down to the rover. The rovers then took the pictures. They were then sent back to the relay satellite and down to mission control, and then processed in real time, in almost real time. And after about 10, 15 minutes or so, there the pictures were displayed on mission control to enormous applause. So they did this on live TV. Okay, next one. And that's the picture that the rover took of the landing. That's the landing legs haven't sunk in very much, just like the Apollo lunar modules. So the regolith there is pretty firm. And that's where the rover track heads off, and it did a little turn there. And then it just came back around, and it's taken the photo back this way. Okay, next one. And that's another view of the panorama. Next one. In that little container, there's a little non-environmentally friendly drinking cup for size comparison. That's a little bio lab, a little habitat, in which they had seeds and they had animals and so on to see if they could live. Well, next one. There is the germinating cotton seeds. They were cotton seeds germinated, and there was another picture that's published which showed one half was this and the other half showed great big lush luxuriant growth. And they got mixed up with the captions. And they were published with the luxuriant growth one saying they were the ones that grown on the moon. But they were controlled, done in a laboratory in China. Okay? I can assure you that these ones which haven't grown so well are the ones on the moon. Their lighting is sunlight, but not direct sunlight, because that would be too bright and would kill the plants. So it's diffused sunlight going in, and they've got a camera on board that obviously takes photos inside that can and then radios it back to Earth. Unfortunately, now that and this is on the lander, not the rover. Now that the night time has come, the lander of course cooled down, froze, and all this is dead now because it's so cold. So after when the sun comes up again, this experiment is done and finished with. Right, this one. And if you want to do this little Jade Rabbit journal that shows you what's been going on, you can follow the mission with that. This one. And going now to Hayabusa and the Ryugu. Last year we talked about the landers, and this they've now had a rather belatedly, I thought. They had a naming competition and they chose names for the two little rovers, the Minerva rovers. So why they didn't do it beforehand, I don't know. But anyway, okay, this one. Now this is a gravitational map of Ryugu, and just reminding you that gravity on the Earth is 9.8 if you want to be exact, but 10 meters per second squared, or if you like, 10 newtons per kilogram. If you hold a kilogram, like a kilogram bottle of milk, then you're 10 kilograms. So 1 kilogram weighs 10 newtons on Earth. Well, 1 kilogram on the heavy on the poles would be 0.14 of a millinewton. So, it's not much gravity there. Because it's spinning, of course, this is perceived gravity, not the actual gravitational field, it's perceived gravity. Because it's rotating, you get flung off tendency, and so the gravity there is a lot weaker. So if you want to jump off this asteroid, the equator is the place to do it. Right, next one. They've named the features on the asteroid after characters that appear in children's stories. You'll notice the one that you'll recognise, Alice's Wonderland. You're probably not so familiar with some of the other Asian type children's stories. Okay, next one. And this shows where they are in relation to some of those things. Okay, next one.
I'm just going to see the metric and reach 10 o'clock, so...
Okay, right, we're just at the children, they had art competitions for this thing. It's a slide, lots of arts, next picture. This is one of my favourites here. I haven't got time to detail the things. I noticed the lady coming down from the sun. Okay, this one. And again, if you're Japanese, you can follow the mission in storybooks and things like that. Next picture. Here we are. This is the lander inside, putting that seismometer down on the surface. One of the lens caps either didn't come off or it's dirty because that's seems to be permanent state of affairs. Next picture shows the seismometer being placed on the ground. So that's the wind cover being put over, windshield being put over the seismometer. Okay, next one. Mars 2020, okay, go on, we've talked about that already. Now, there's some other missions in orbit around Mars, and this is the 2001 Mars Odyssey, named after, of course, the film. And that's the picture just released a day or two ago, one of the latest pictures. And there's thousands of these pictures it's taken of Mars. Next one. Now to Jupiter and the Juno mission. Okay, next. And there's the dolphin, a nice, better picture of the dolphin than we've had before. There's the dolphin there. Next one. And next one. Juno's not supposed to look at the moons, but it has taken a distant look at Io, and there's a volcanic eruption there on Io. Next one. Again, this has inspired lots and lots of artists, not only just in the photographic fields, but also in oils and paints. And this lady here has done this painting. This one shows the painting itself. So lots of artwork has been inspired by the Juno mission. Next one. Now Venus. Let's get the name right again. It's the what's it? Akatsuki mission, which has been in orbit around Venus for several years now. It initially failed to go into orbit and had to do another loop around the sun and come back. So we've got some ultraviolet pictures. Next one. Quite remarkable detail now emerging of the cloud structures and so on that mission. Next one. Now some infrared pictures. Again. Oops. I'm pressing this.
Yeah, you'll do it.
Oh.
You can do it, you know.
Okay. Alright. What I was going to show is that this is see there's a boundary in the cloud layers there, another one down here. So this mission hardly ever mentioned in any of the literature. It's done these amazing work at Venus. So your picture, probably the Mariner 10 picture of Venus is probably your one you have in your mind. Going to Mars, Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. A few days ago they released this picture of a new impact crater on Mars. It's on the polar region. And as you said, that little dot there is there. That's opportunity after the dust storm. Unfortunately, opportunity, no contact yet. They've had 600 attempts to contact it. And lastly, there's going to be a performance by this group called Ephemera, and they're in Sydney, and they do space-based music. Kana Wilkins, that's her there. She's in charge of this group, and she's a good friend of the space show because she's given us 4 CDs, and we played them on the show, not all of them, but some of them, and she's done an interview as well. So they're performing in Sydney in a few days' time. So if you're up in Sydney, you want to check them out. Good group. Chamber music, of course. Some people don't like chamber music. Okay, that's it.
Oh God. We've broken a record. I think we are 4 minutes late by my watch, and that's fantastic. Listen, that's the conclusion of the meeting now. Thank you everyone for attending tonight, coming out to our new venue. Thank you to all the speakers, Mike and Angelo, and our special guest. I really appreciate the impromptu presentation, and Andrew, of course. Actually down the back running the buttons and wires. Thank you for that. So that's it. Once again, if you could fix up your bill on the way out, that would be much appreciated. And we will see you back here next month. It's the 25th of February, I believe, is the date. 4th Monday of the month. Thanks everyone. Have a great evening. Drive safe. Train safe.